Welcome Professor Bell and the team. Would you like to make a short opening statement?
I would, if you don't mind.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. So, good evening, Chair and Senators. Tonight, the Australian National University is making its fourth appearance at Senate estimates and my third as Vice-Chancellor. I'm deeply privileged to be the steward of our National University, and I'm here representing our students, our staff and our 140,000 alumni all over the world. I grew up in Australia, in a household that didn't have a lot of money. I was raised to believe in the power of education, the importance of hard work, and the idea of service. My mother won a place at university when I was a little girl, and I came to understand very personally what a university education can mean in terms of creating opportunities and changing lives. I've been fortunate enough to pursue a university education, and it's helped change my life too. My story is one of many from across Australia and here in this Parliament. And access to education empowers our young people and makes possible a better and more prosperous future for them and for our country. I know that this is why, in the 1940s, Prime Minister Chifley and his cabinet decided to create a national university to ensure our nation would always be able to build a better future and to build a better place. The Act that establishes the Australian National University makes clear our obligations, first amongst them, advancing and transmitting knowledge by undertaking research and teaching of the highest quality for Australia, Australians and those who come to us from overseas. And that's what we do. It's been 112 days since our last appearance here, and I wanted to update the committee on what we've been doing to fulfil our obligations to our staff, our students, our partners in research and to the Australian community. We've graduated more than 4,000 students who will take up roles in government and industry, who will start their own businesses and work in family ones, and who might even continue with further study with us or elsewhere. Their education and the skills they've learned at our university will contribute to Australia's future and future prosperity. And just this month, we welcome 4,000 new students who will be undertaking degrees in our campus in many areas, focusing from the Asia-Pacific region to nuclear physics, computer science, economics and philosophy. Many of our students will choose to do a double degree, which allows them multidisciplinary focus for their research and education, whilst providing the flexibility for them to work while they study. Advancing and transmitting knowledge, it seems, takes many forms. Earlier this week, Catherine Livingstone, Chancellor at UTS, I know it's weird to talk about someone else's Chancellor, but I will talk about Catherine Livingstone, described universities as the knowledge infrastructure for our nation. I think she'd agree that the participation of ANU as the Australian hub for a Rio Tinto Centre for Future Materials is an excellent proof point. This is a $240 million commitment by Rio Tinto to support research into sustainable sourcing and use of minerals. Our first contribution will be to focus on finding ways to reduce the demand for copper and extract it from the ground in the most sustainable ways possible. Drawing from my own experience, I also know that creating spaces on campus for all people means finding ways to remove barriers, and this takes many forms. In the last month, we've opened new childcare facilities to replace ageing ones. This provides more than 200 places for children of our staff and students. It's critical for working families to have reliable, high-quality and affordable childcare right on campus so they can participate fully in university life. Like all complex organisations, we're experiencing the very real challenges of being an employer in the 21st century. ANU has operated outside of healthy financial tolerances, and the university in its current state cannot be the one that the Prime Minister imagined all those years ago. Since the pandemic, we've accumulated an underlying operating deficit of nearly $600 million. This is the time for us to make difficult and important choices to ensure our long-term financial sustainability, to return the university to a stable footing and a viable future. We've introduced a range of new operational controls to give us better line of sight over our financial performance. These are not always popular, but they are essential, and I want to thank our community for coming on this journey with us. Just this week, we opened a voluntary separation scheme, and I also want to thank our union for their partnership in making this scheme available to our staff. But like many in our sector, finances aren't our only challenge. Over the last 15 months, the world has experienced upheaval and conflict, and our campus has not been unaffected. We are very clear about who we are and what we stand for. There is no place for racism, discrimination or vilification of any kind at the ANU. There is no place for anti-Semitism or Islamophobia at the ANU. I and my executive team and our community abhor and reject these behaviours totally. I know there has been much interest in our sector and how we're responding to these important issues, and we know there's more work to be done. We're committed to doing this in collaboration with our students and our staff and in partnership with the government and the special envoys. This means continuing difficult but respectful conversations, balancing academic freedom and freedom of speech, and also spending time examining our policies and procedures and whether they remain in line with community expectations and Australian law. Tonight we are here to continue the conversation about the National University and our commitment and service to Australia, and we look forward to answering your questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Faruqi.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Vice Chancellor, ANU has announced its intention to reduce staff expenditure by 100 million by January 1st, 2026. How much has the ANU reduced staff expenditure by so far?
Thank you for the question, Senator Faruqi. And I need to just open that question up a little bit further. What we've committed to is reducing the overall operating base of the university by $250 million by the beginning of 2026. That means $100 million will need to come out of staffing costs and $150 out of non-salary costs. As you can imagine, that's going to mean a great deal of work and hard choices for us through the back half of last year, some of the time that we were here at Estimates. We have done a number of different things. We have run a number of change plans. We've introduced a series of financial controls. We've spent time working with our community to reduce our overall leave liability, but we still have a lot of work to do.
So how much staff expenditure has been reduced of that 100 million that you anticipate should be reduced? I just need a number.
I can take that. Yeah, around $13 million through those change plans that the Vice Chancellor just spoke of will count towards that savings.
Okay, and how many job cuts out of those 13 million? How many are job cuts?
There was so Senator, we had 79 staff have exited the universities. There was also a series of vacant roles that we've disestablished as well. So no individuals impacted, but we've shut some other roles down. Okay,
and how many further job cuts do you anticipate will be required to meet that 100 million by January 2026?
So, Senator, I'll take a piece of it and I'll give a piece of it back to you, Michael. So, Senator, part of the reason that we've really talked about this as salary reductions, not individual headcount numbers, is that we know sitting inside that there are a number of things we can do. Part of what we've been working with aggressively in the second half of last year and indeed in January this year too is reducing our leave liability. At the university we had an excess leave liability that was quite significant. We had seen multiple year period where people hadn't taken the leave that was available to them, and by reducing some of that we've taken more money off that larger target state. And so for us we want to make sure that we are doing all the pieces that are possible, and so it's not about a number of heads per se, it's about how we achieve both a sustainable footprint and how we move the other levers that we have.
So there will be no job cuts?
No, Senator.
Any more out for that 100 million savings?
No, Senator, I didn't say that. We will end up having to continue to look at how we achieve a sustainable footprint, and we know as we work through that we're going to have all the options available to us.
So there's no strategy at the moment or a target?
The target is the $100 million, Senator.
But nothing more than that?
We are continuing to work through all the options we have at our disposal. Some of that may involve job reduction, but at the moment we're also focusing on how we ensure that we are looking at our leave liabilities and the other pieces of the puzzle.
What is the ANU's current full-time equivalent number of staff?
Of headcount? I can tell you that number, Senator. At the moment, and bearing in mind that this is, as you know, a rolling number, at the end of January, our full-time equivalent was 4,523. Of that, 1,753 were academics and 2,770 were professional.
Okay, and has this number fallen since the beginning of 2024?
It has a little bit, Senator.
And can you give me those numbers? If you have them on hand, if you don't, could you put them on notice?
We can absolutely take that on notice, Senator.
Do you know how much it has fallen by? Approximate idea?
By about 300, Senator.
By about 300. Okay.
But that's been, Senator, both a combination of people leaving and us not backfilling those departures. And as you might or may not be aware, Senator, we opened a voluntary separation scheme for our community on Tuesday of this week.
Have colleges been given specific targets for staff expenditure cuts?
So the way we've worked our budget for 2025, and I'll also ask Michael to join here, is that colleges were given an overall target state for 2025, and we're working with them to work out how they will best achieve that. And because we have, as you remember, 6 colleges now, they're all quite different in terms of their composition.
Okay. So, sorry, just clarifying. So there have been specific targets for staff expenditure cuts being given to colleges?
They've been given their budgets for 2025, so and then they have to deliver their objectives within that budget.
Okay, so that basically tells them what the cuts are as well. Have colleges been given targets for specifically staff cuts? either in headcount or FTE?
There's been no mantra around a specific reduction in headcount, no. It's purely dollar-based.
Yeah,
it's purely
okay.
dollar-based.
Okay. Do you anticipate that they will, though, have to let staff go? Because how else would they? I mean, you've suggested some ways of doing it, but will they have to get, sack staff?
Each college is going to find itself in a different position, Senator, as will different organisations around the university. And as I said, we now are in a window with a voluntary separation scheme, and we'll need to see what impact that has too.
Yeah. I think it's been 4 months. It was a mass budget cuts on 3 October 2024 when Renew ANU was launched were announced. And it's been, 4 months now? Or 5 months now? And there's still, staff don't have a clear picture of how many of them will be let go of. I mean, I just think, are they on tenterhooks? What's going on? What's the morale like in your university? Because to me, it seems like having been at a university for many years as an academic, that this would be very difficult for staff.
I think you are right, Senator. It's a difficult period for our university and for our community. The journey that we're on in terms of both working out our financial state and developing a plan to manage it is going to be a long, complicated road for the university, and we're all committed both to managing this and to having a sustainable university when we're finished. And I know for staff across the university, it's been a stressful period, and we are continuing to work with our staff to find ways to manage all of that. But you're right, it's not going to be an easy journey.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you about kind of what attention or what specific steps the ANU is taking to ensure that when staff are let go of, that you consider the diversity of staff there as well during this change management process. Because I know that already there are, obviously everywhere in every organization, then the representation is an issue. So are you taking specific steps to ensure that representation remains? And
Senator, we will ensure that as we work through all of the changes that we have, we do them in a manner that's compliant with Australian law and with the policies of our university.
Are there any planned cuts in the Centre for Arab and Islamic Studies currently? Are you aware of any people there being sacked?
Senator, I work at a budget level at the university, and for us, as Michael has said, part of the way we have been managing our budget is to give each college a target that they need to accomplish that is relative to a series of factors, both about what they've spent historically, about how much revenue they bring in, about how they teach. And so each one of the colleges will make its individual plans about how they are managing pieces of that.
So
and as you will remember...
Sorry, go.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. As you remember from when we were here in November, we've also been running a review of all of our centres and institutes to make sure that we are setting everyone up to be successful.
Yep, and with those targets, and those targets are just budgets, you said there are no specific targets of staff cuts or anything else. With those targets, have you actually given, guidelines or instructions on the maintenance of diversity within those colleges?
Senator, we have given clear guidance about how we maintain both an ability to deliver the courses and research that we should have, as well as continuing to operate within both our own guidelines and the country's laws.
I just have a couple more questions, Chair, on another topic. Is ANU one of the universities that has adopted a definition of anti-Semitism a few days ago?
Senator, I was at the UA Vice-Chancellor's Summit on Monday. Gosh, that already feels like a lifetime.
It really does.
ago. I'm sure this week must be quite something for you too. So on Monday we did that, but we're actually part of the GO8, and we had already been working on that definition with our counterparts in the GO8 at the end of last year.
Yeah. You may recall that the ANUVC branch met in 2023 said that it is our advice that adopting any definition of anti-Semitism, which implicates academic criticism of the State of Israel, poses a real risk of reducing the scope of academic freedom as currently maintained at the ANU, and that was based on a discussion paper prepared by the university's Academic Freedom Reference Group at that time. So do you not have those concerns anymore?
So I was not part of those decisions, clearly, as you will understand, but I would like to ask Tony to contribute to that, as he was part of that working group and part of the evolution of this conversation, and also Senator Faruqi was on the G08 working group.
Yes, so back in 22-23, we were approached by the parliamentary friends of the IHRA to consider adopting the IHRA definition. And the expert reference group at the time was given the task by the Vice-Chancellor at that time of providing some insight into what the impact of adopting that definition might be on academic freedom as it operated within the ANU. The view of that expert reference group was that there was some risk that adopting the IHRA definition in total, in the whole of that definition, might at some point in the future, if it were interpreted in a certain way by decision makers and others, reduce the scope of academic research and teaching, potentially, particularly in relation to inquiry into and potential questioning of the State of Israel, its government, its actions, and so on.
That is still the view of many academics and experts, that this definition of anti-Semitism also has exactly the same implications. Critics of adopting this definition have actually slammed universities, calling it dangerous, foolhardy, politicized, and unworkable, as well as being counter to the mission of universities. One of the academics, Nama Blattman, who is a scholar of settler colonialism and Israel-Palestine, has said, as a Jewish Israeli academic who researches and teaches in the area of settler colonialism and Israel-Palestine, I fear this definition will have a chilling effect on scholarly work criticizing the state of Israel and the political ideology and impacts of Zionism. So I guess what I'm asking you is that the concerns that the university had at that time are still concerns that many have at this time as well. So why would you put academic freedom and the mission of a university at risk?
The current UA/G08 definition will be coming before Academic Board for consideration shortly, in the next few weeks. And at that point, all points of view on the board will be given the opportunity to be heard and considered very carefully.
Thank you, Chair.
Good, thanks very much. I just want to hand over to the Deputy Chair whilst I ask some questions. Yeah. No, I'm going to ask some questions. I was handing over to the Deputy Chair. The Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. No worries. Just trying to help.
So you're stepping down from the chair.
I just want to go to thanks for joining us tonight. And as you outlined, it's seriously, serious concern about what's happening, across ANU with the loss of staff and the deficit. I just want to ask some questions and get some clarity. Just on the with the $600 million underlying deficit, and of course it hasn't come in 12 months. Some reports suggested that the ANU had been in an operating deficit since 2019-20. Is that correct?
So the operating deficits have been accumulating since 2021. And so, as you will be aware, Senator Sheldon, we report our finances through the annual report. Annually, that annual report has been clear about the underlying operating deficits for the university. There was certainly plans at the end of 2023 to grow out of those deficits, but the reality is a combination of external headwinds and lack of internal controls have meant that we find ourselves in a position where we need to address the...
Yeah, can I just go to, just want to unpack something. I'm just
absolutely.
quite interested. I know like 2019, 20, obviously COVID, 2019, 20, 21, COVID, particularly the full thrust of COVID and how we met that challenge. Of course, recall that, as many would recall, that JobKeeper was paid from the 30th of March to the 28th of March, 30th of March 2020 to the 28th of March 2021. Did you ever do any calculations about what the consequences were of not receiving JobKeeper? I'm just intrigued, that's all.
Not that I've seen. I was not there at the time, Senator, but yes, I'm aware the university did not receive any JobKeeper.
Did you see? Could you just take this on notice, or you might be able to give it to me quickly now? If it's not quick, take it on notice. Mindful of the time. Just what the wages bill was that would cover that period of March, 30th of March 2020 to the 28th of March 2021. I appreciate that might be. You may have to flex it a little bit on either side to make it convenient to find. And I'm going to ask you to do a more challenging thing, and that is that I would have thought there would have been some assessment made if there was a change of view about JobKeeper being paid to the universities, because it was one of the few sectors that missed out. In actual fact, my recollection may be the only sector that missed out. And of course, we're seeing those repercussions still reverberating. If you're able to sort of give me a ballpark figure, about what you could have received from JobKeeper during that period, just so I have that in my head. I just want to go to an important question. I'm sure it's been raised in many quarters, but it's one that I should be putting on the record now here as well. On the 22nd of October 2024, in the Canberra Times, reported the ANU's Chancellor response to questions on ANU's current financial situation included the following: many members of staff have been part of the inefficiencies that the university is now seeking to address. Now, this suggests that staff are to blame for ANU's current financial problems. Are you able to clarify which staff the Chancellor was referring to when she made these comments?
Senator, I would never dare to put myself in the shoes of my Chancellor and about what she might have been referring to. What I am clear about is that we have been through multiple years of financial challenges, and when you look at the benchmarking data in our sector...
I was asking about the Chancellor. If you can't answer the question about the Chancellor, and she's not expressed her view to you about what she meant, and you haven't spoken to her about what she meant?
No, sir. Has
anyone else at the table spoken to her about what she meant? It seems a pretty dramatic comment. I would have thought someone would have asked her. That's quite amazing, because that's a very dramatic comment that would have had a big impact on the staff's morale and their view about how they're perceived by the Chancellor. I just want to go to another line of questioning. A few questions about consultants. The ANU procurement procedure document available on the ANU website says that services should be sourced through preferred suppliers or established provider panels where possible. Does that apply to consulting services?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. And are there preferred consultants or panels of preferred consultants?
Across all the university?
Yeah.
There may be in certain select areas, but yeah, there is a process to select suppliers, and that can take many forms.
Can you just step me through just some of the key things about whether there's conflicts of interest that ever occur in those circumstances?
We have a policy to highlight those. I do see some of those as in my role, Senator. So, the procuring officer or the delegate will declare if they have any conflicts of interest, or declare where they don't have any in certain circumstances. Yes. And if you can just give us you're welcome to give it broad, or you can give it, and also I've got copies of the conflicts of interest, but maybe just from your understanding, for the committee to understand what would be potential conflicts of interest. In terms of
So notifying you, and then what in a very broad context, what would you consider as actual conflicts?
Or what would we consider a conflict?
There's two things. Someone might say there's a potential for a conflict of interest. They notify you. There's another broader aspect. You'd say, well, actually, there is a conflict of interest here. And I'm asking very broadly.
Well, depending upon the nature of the conflict, we may not let that procurement activity complete. But there are plenty of times where people want to note things just for the avoidance of doubt to ensure that there actually is no... Because often conflicts are more perceived than actual, Senator.
And because the ANU has a procurement procedure, document that goes on to say about depending on the value of the contract, there's certain procedures that are followed as well, as I understand.
It's not always dollar-based, but yeah, certainly dollar can offer a good guide, Senator.
Right. If it's not dollar-based, what otherwise would it be? For me, is it? Yeah.
Oh, the risk that might be with the contract. So it could be, like a provider of high risk activity. So yes, it's not always dollars, but yeah, certainly dollars offers a good guide.
Right. Does the policy apply to everyone at the university procuring services using university money?
Yes, Senator.
Does it apply to the Chancellor?
It would apply to ANU staff.
So you're saying it does not apply to the Chancellor?
Would apply to the Chancellor in her role as Chancellor.
Yeah, thank you. I've been informed by reliable sources at the university that the Chancellor has over a period of time engaged a consulting entity called Vinda Consulting for some paid work. Are you familiar with Vinda Consulting?
I'm not, Senator.
Is there anyone else at the table?
No, Senator.
The 13th of June 2019, the Australian reported that Vinda Consulting had been established by Julie Bishop's longtime Chief of Staff, Murray Hanson, and as, and I quote, a private vehicle set up with his wife. There were little information available about Vinda Consulting. It has no website or other public profile. It seems to have no employees other than Mr Hanson. Is this the first time you've heard about Ms Bishop engaging her former political staff as an external consultant using university money? Or were you aware of this happening? And I might just ask for that article just so it helps from the Australian to be handed up.
Certainly first time I've heard of it, Senator.
So it's in an article which is a public document. Has anyone else at the table heard of this? I know people are shaking their head. Professor Bell.
No, Senator, I've not.
And Professor Grady and Professor Connolly have also shaking their head. I take that as a no. No. It does also raise concerns about, what is the oversight, but I'll ask some more questions. You may need to take this on notice. Could you provide me with a full list of contracts or other expenditure that the Chancellor or any other entity in the university has engaged Vinda Consulting on? Would you be able to do that for me?
Yeah, Senator, we're happy to take that on notice.
Thank you. I'd like the dollar figure of each engagement, what the engagement was for, and if possible, a copy of what Vinda actually produced.
For the university, Senator, just for clarification here.
For the university and the contracts, which means, I say that university in the various broadest contexts includes the Chancellor, but the university also broadly. At the same time, if you could just tell me whether Vinda's on any preferred tender list anywhere.
We'll
but
take that on notice as well.
You haven't heard of it before, so I wouldn't expect you're going to be able to tell me straight away. You can take that on notice as well. And under what circumstance are they on the preferred contractor list and what areas? Is Vinda Consulting on the university's preferred supplier list, which I appreciate you'll make available to me? For the engagements that Ms Bishop has entered into with her former Chief of Staff with the university's money, do you know if she obtained any quotes from any other consultants? So if you can take that on notice. Whether those contracts put out for public tender, if you can take that on notice. Or did she just go directly to Mr Hanson, if you can take that on notice as well. Further questions, back to the procurement procedure document on the ANU website that we were discussing briefly earlier. It says regarding conflicts of interest, and if I got this wrong, and I think I've written it down right, but if I've got it wrong, please tell me.
And I quote, "Staff involved in university purchasing activities disclose all actual or perceived conflict of interest arising from purchasing activities in accordance with the university's disclosure of interest policy. Particular attention is given where potential suppliers are current or past employees of the university or have a personal relationship with any ANU employees involved in the procurement policy." Are you aware that whether Ms Bishop disclosed this clear conflict of interest to anyone at the university? And did she follow the disclosure of interest policy?
We'll take that on notice when we look at this vendor. This is the first I've heard of this vendor, Senator, so we'll wrap that up into the piece of work we go and do.
Mr Longwood, you've got the area of responsibility, and I just want to know what the processes are. This report in the Australian was 2019. When did you start with the university?
I started at ANU in April 2024.
Right. If there's, particularly of senior staff, and in this case the Chancellor, you can't get much more senior other than the Council, senior staff and the Chancellor, did you do a review of any conflicts of interest of any of those parties? Because that would seem to me to be a due diligent thing to do.
I've done no personal review, but there is
the organisation probably fair.
So, Senator, we have a register of interests.
No, I'm asking a very clear question. Well, can you, Professor Bell, did you instruct anyone to do a review, or I'm asking Mr Longren, and you said that there is a process, that there are reviews done, which I respect it may not personally be done by you, but there's somebody engaged to do that. I'm just asking whether there's been any review when you came in.
Not instigated by me, but I'm aware that the university periodically ensures that people are aware of the register and that they make any appropriate declarations.
Professor Bell, I'm just asking a straight question. Did you do any review when you came in as the Chancellor, or request a review of at least the senior personnel about just where there was any potential conflicts of interest?
When I came as the Vice-Chancellor.
Vice-Chancellor, my apologies.
No, it's all right. When I became Vice-Chancellor, I certainly made an appropriate set of declarations of my own to the register. Through the arc of 2024, we have updated our community and our senior leadership team with the expectations that they will also declare things on the register, and the registers are, at least for personnel like the Chancellor and myself, tabled at Council every year, annually.
So could you also give copies of where that was tabled, about vendor or not tabled, whatever was contained in those conflicts of interest? I appreciate that there may be a request to the committee, and how we deal with that, but it's certainly the evidence and information I would require. And you're not aware that, that Ms Bishop declared any conflict of interest or disclosure in the disclosure of interest policy?
Chancellor, Senator, I have no knowledge of this particular matter.
In that article, sort of as I mentioned before, Mr Hanson was a long-term employee and Chief of Staff of Ms Bishop for over a decade and qualifies as a sufficiently close relationship. Do you believe that should be disclosed? Again, I'm saying you're saying you're going to see the documents, you're going to look to see whether it's been disclosed, you're not aware of it being disclosed, or has or hasn't? But is it something that should be disclosed? Mr Longren, you've got responsibility here on this space.
Senator, we'll take this matter on notice and go work out what we have and what we haven't got, and we'll get it to you in an appropriate manner.
Mr.
Longren, were you able to tell me whether that's something that would...
Senator, I was not there. As I said earlier, I joined ANU in 2024. I've not heard of Vinda Consulting. More than happy to go and have a look if they've been engaged at any time at ANU since 2019. And if they have, we will look into what the procurement practice, if the policy was followed.
Mr. Longren, can I just remind you as well, if you can just think about this for a moment. The policy states that I read out before, one of the issues of disclosure of interest included have a personal relationship with any ANU employees involved in the procurement policy. Now, I appreciate you're going to look at the policy, you're going to look at what happened with Vindex, you're not aware of it. but would you describe a 10-year, over a decade relationship as a person who's the Chief of Staff and other senior roles, that would create a personal relationship, a close personal relationship?
Yes, potentially.
Ms Bishop and Mr Hanson's connection does not end there. Upon leaving Parliament, Ms Bishop established her own advisory firm called Julie Bishop and Partners. And according to reporting in The Australian from 2019, Mr Hanson came on board as a founding principal. And according to the firm's website, Mr Hanson is still today one of just 3 employees of the firm. Now, even setting aside their long professional and personal relationship, is it concerning that the Chancellor is handing out consulting contracts to someone she separately employs at Julie Bishop and Partners?
Senator, can you repeat the question for me? I'm sorry,
I'm very happy to repeat the question. Ms Bishop and Mr Hanson's connection does not end there, as I've just mentioned, that there's an over 10-year personal relationship. Upon leaving Parliament, Ms Bishop established her own advisory firm called Julie Bishop and Partners. And according to reporting in The Australian from 2019, which I've handed up, Mr Hanson came on board as a founding principal. And according to the firm's website, Mr Hanson is still today one of just 3 employees of the firm. Now, even setting aside their long professional and personal relationship, is it concerning that the Chancellor is handing out consulting contracts to someone she separately employs at Julie Bishop and Partners? Now, I appreciate you aren't aware of this company. I appreciate that you've taken that on notice. Are you concerned, Mr Longren, if the contracts were awarded?
I think we're dealing. We would appreciate to be able to go get the facts.
I respect that.
Yeah, before we make any judgment. So I think we'll go and look at vendor consulting, as I say, if they've been engaged in any way, shape, or form through ANU, who engaged them, and then we will provide you back those details.
And I'm clear, as you've all given evidence that you're not aware of this relationship. Ms Bishop hasn't expressed this relationship that occurs.
Not to the best of our notice, Senator, but I would really like to get to the fact
Now,
so that
it's
we
not
can
even
answer you
just
appropriately.
Ms Hanson. There are 2 other employees of Julie Bishop and Partners listed on their website of the company. One of them is another long-term former political staffer for Ms Bishop. They are, as I understand it, employed by Ms Bishop in the Chancellor's office and taking salaries from the university. Are you aware that that's true?
So Julie Bishop and company is a different thing than the
Yes,
the
Julie
Chancellor.
Bishop and Partners, listed on their website.
Yep.
Includes Mr Hanson, as I've just put to you. One of them is that there is also, I understand, employed by Ms Bishop in the Chancellor's office and taking salaries from universities, from the university as well, that there are other staff that are actually working for both organisations.
There are 2 staff members who support the Chancellor's office. They report to the University Secretary, and we manage that way.
Chair.
Yeah.
Just want to
I'll get a few minutes and I'll try to wrap up.
Thanks.
I just want to regarding those other employees and just also, is there just how if there's a person working for 2 organisations, this is what I'm putting to you, there may or may not be conflicts of interest between those 2 organisations, but there's work challenges because I understand those 2 staff members are in Bishop and Partners offices in Perth, as I understand. What's the oversight of how work is done by the Chancellor, where there's potentially conflicts of interest of prioritising work?
Senator, let me sort of take a step back here, right? As you know, we have had Chancellors before, the current Chancellor. Our previous Chancellor, Gareth Evans, also had office support staff for him. They staffed an office for him. We've used a similar structure here. The salaries for the employees that support the Chancellor come from the budget for the Office of the Vice-Chancellor. They report to the Secretary of the University, who does their performance reviews as well as reviews their activities. We manage it quite structurally that way.
Thank you. Look, I just want to be quite straight with you. I'm just concerned, and I appreciate there's a number of things that you've taken on notice. I'm concerned that Ms Bishop may have secretly engaged a former Chief of Staff as an external consultant. I'm also concerned that the person is also separately employed by Julie Bishop and Partners, and she's done that without going through the proper procurement processes or disclosing those conflicts of interest. I am concerned that it hasn't been expressed to the 4 people in front of me, and I'm concerned whether it's been expressed to the council as well. That she's also employed 2 other employees of Julie Bishop and Partners in the Chancellor's office in Perth, and 3,500 kilometres away from the university campus. So at a time when Ms Bishop has been accusing university staff of being the cause of ANU's financial problems, it appears to me, on the surface, that she's been lavishing university funds on political staffers and employees of her company. Now, I do want you to take that on notice about a response to that. You are welcome to make a response right now. I'd encourage you to, but you are certainly welcome to take that on notice as well.
Well, Senator Sheldon, I'd like to get to do both of those things. I'd like to take the details on notice, but I'd also like to assert here 2 things. One, we have had multiple chancellors at this university. None of them have lived in the Australian Capital Territory. They have always resided elsewhere. Those chancellors have come from different sectors in the economy. Some of them have been former politicians. All of those chancellors have had offices that supported them. Those offices have worked where they were. Some of those have been in Victoria, some of those have been in other places. What the Chancellor is doing in terms of the support she has is not unusual or out of bandwidth for the university. And I'm also concerned that we are currently having a conversation about staff members who are watching themselves be discussed here in a way that feels a little bit gratuitous, and I want to make sure we're taking these questions on notice and ensuring that those staff are being treated appropriately. Senator Faruqi rightly said my community is anxious at the moment and this cannot be helping them.
And I'm looking forward to Ms Bishop coming before this committee at a future time. I have no further questions. Back to me. Is there any other questions for ANU? Thank you very much. You're dismissed for tonight.